Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Honeydo or Honeydon't, the state of the travel industry. My name is Tatiana Byron. I'm CEO, founder of Wedding Salon, and I wanted to welcome you here today. It is with great pleasure that we have these incredible panelists today that will introduce themselves in just a couple of moments. And I did want to say that our industry is alive. Our industry is kicking. Our industry is screaming. Our industry is hurting. And our industry is, coming back and is not dead. And so I know that destination weddings and honeymoons and, there are a lot of questions surrounding, especially for our couples that are planning weddings or, stressed out and confused. We know that the newly engaged brides are trying to figure out if they should book, how they should book. And the ones that have booked are thinking, should I postpone? Should I not postpone? We've seen all these questions come in, and we're going to address each and every one of your questions to the best of our ability. And if there's something that you really want us to address, feel free to chat us, during the webinar. We're happy to answer, additional questions if we have the time. And, we're very excited to have all of you join us today and for us to share and give back to the community, especially during this time. And so I will pass the baton to our first panelist to please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Mareike. I'm a group and events manager in Eden-Rock-Capcana in the Dominican Republic. We are the first Relais and Chateau property here in the Dominican Republic. We do have 34 alone standing villas with private pool, 26 beachfront suites, and 5 bungalows, a lot of outside space for weddings. We are all about out space to have open air weddings, wedding renewals right at the beach with the sea as the beautiful background. And we are open and we are waiting for new weddings. We already have organized 2 weddings since July, since the flights are getting back to the Dominican Republic. We are open for legal weddings as well, which is a very big plus. And I'm waiting for you and for a lot more weddings, not only in 21, we are already now waiting to get your wedding dream come true.
We're ready for our next panelist.
Hello, my name is Michelle Fox. I'm an event planner. I've been planning all kinds of events for the last 20 years. I started as a caterer, and a funny story, my first wedding that I ever did, just as a wedding only, was for Sharon and Ozzy Osbourne, which was on MTV. I wasn't the caterer because they did the Beverly Hills Hotel. So my first wedding went live on MTV in 2003, which was kind of crazy. We do all size weddings from small to big, and we've had some that are pretty famous. We had the 4th Googled wedding in the world in 2018 for Kat Von D. But most of our clients are really creative. We like to work with people that don't want to do the ordinary wedding, that we do white on white all the time and shades of blush, but we also are really great at creating very couture weddings for people that want something that no one else has had. And that includes going to destinations where they can give their guests an experience.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I am Beth Clark. I'm with the Don Cesar Hotel on St. Pete Beach, Florida. We are a destination wedding as well as a local wedding venue for guests throughout Florida, Tampa Bay, throughout the entire country, and we get some international clients as well. We are in the process of an amazing enhancement project throughout our entire property. So by the end of this calendar year, we will have brand new ballroom space, guest room space, arrival experience. We're really getting a head to toe renovation. So after the end of this year, we will be a almost 100-year-old brand new hotel. So we're super excited about all of those changes that are coming along.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Woody Walls. I'm the managing director of the Shoals Club on Bald Head Island here in beautiful North Carolina. You can see the gorgeous 270-degree views of the Atlantic Ocean from our property in the picture behind me. We are open, and if you are looking to have a destination wedding in the U.S. and feel like you're not in the U.S., we're your place to come. We are accessible by passenger ferry only. Everyone gets around on the island by golf carts. We have 14 miles of pristine beaches. We have lots of outdoor space for you to social distance. And we have all the protocols that we need in place. And so we are very creative. So we've done shift weddings. We have done a number of amazing things to make sure our clients are taken care of. We also have a sister club on the island, the Bald Head Island Club, which has your golf and tennis and all of your traditional club amenities. So in total, 8 restaurants, private beach access, and lots of fun. And so I'm just excited to be here today. I'm a little outnumbered, so you guys cheer for me today, okay?
Good afternoon. I'm Kim Riddle, the Business Development Manager for the U.S. with the Aruba Tourism Authority. Aruba is open for happiness. It's a great destination all the way in the Southern Caribbean, so it's ideal for that destination wedding. So definitely keep us in mind for the destination wedding. I mean, pre-COVID, of course, we were already doing the smaller weddings, so it fits in nicely with those micro or smaller destination weddings. Of course, as things progress moving into later into 21 or into 22, when we're getting into the larger numbers again, we can handle the larger weddings again for you as well. But Aruba is all about being outdoors. So it's all about the outdoor spaces. You do very little inside in Aruba. So already you have all the open air spaces for everything, all of your events, because it's perfect weather all year round. So definitely keep us in mind when it comes to those destination weddings, for anything from your high ends to your small personal, intimate, just the two of you. So it can be done on a budget as well. So keep us in mind.
My name is Susan Quigley. I am the certified financial planner in this group, which makes me a really practical and not quite as much fun person. But I'm the person that helps you guys be able to afford all the fun things that these guys are going to help you go and do all these amazing things when you guys start your lives together. I like weddings so much. I had 2 of them. We had our traditional white wedding, and then the next night we got married on Halloween and had a whole nother wedding with our Halloween reception where my husband and I did it all over again, dressed as Gomez and Morticia Adams. They are the very romantic couple, and not gonna lie, 28 years ago, I made a very hot Morticia. What I bring to the table is helping you guys do a wedding that you can afford and then plan your lives after they get you off to a rockin' start for day one. Part of what I'm going to help you do is figure out how to plan for the rest of your lives. I do a lot of financial planning seminars for couples on how to marry your money, how to file your taxes together, and how to be able to plan to afford your wedding so that you guys get off to a great start and still be able to live comfortably and plan the next stages of your lives together in a very practical way, but still having a lot of fun. We guys want you to have a great time and not stress about money. So that's my contribution to this whole fun package.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Waffle from Carolyn Waffle Certified Travel. We plan destination weddings and honeymoons to all-inclusive resorts in the Caribbean and Mexico. We negotiate the contracts, we take care of all of the room arrangements, the wedding itself, if you need that type of assistance as well. In this particular 8-month period that we have all enjoyed trudging through, we have rescheduled countless destination weddings and honeymoons, some of them up to 3 times. So we take the stress off of the couple. I can't imagine what the couples that have not used a travel advisor have gone through during this period. So we use our expertise, our connections, and our resources to make the experience just as fun as possible and make sure that the bride and groom are able to just entertain their guests and enjoy their overall experience.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for the amazing introductions, and so that everyone can get a glimpse into your worlds and what you have to offer. And we'll get started right away with questions. And the first question I have is for you, Marika, and that is, how do you make your guests feel safe to travel?
Well, when a guest books with us, we do organize the VIP transportation right from the airport, so they're picked up by us, feeling already safe because it will be someone from our team to get them to the resort. Then everyone at the hotel wears masks. We do all have in every point the gel. So we all we follow all the regulations. We do have implemented all digital menus. Everything that can be digital will be in a digital manner. Housekeeping services can be pre-booked. It's a respect of all the rules, and as we have a lot of outside spaces, people are never very close to each other. Everything is spaced out, very airy. We feel that people coming to our hotel are very relaxed. As soon as they come out to the airport and step into the private transportation coming, they feel the vacation is starting and the relax can start.
Thank you so much. The next question I have is for Beth. What is the hotel industry doing to keep guests safe? And who is the authority that you follow for these guidelines?
So like most brands across the board, the hotel industry has made a lot of changes, but our hotel specifically rolled out what we call a wellness first plan. So that touches every department from the arrival experience to the check-in process. We've increased our frequency of sanitization. We've also added the antibacterial stations throughout the property. We're spacing things out differently. We do have limited capacity in some of our restaurants and lounge areas, as well as even on the pool deck and the beach areas. We've spaced those out significantly. We have signage that reminds the guests to stay 6 feet apart, and just really doing everything we can to eliminate as many contact points and touch points as possible. And if we can't eliminate those, reducing them significantly. And that's everything from, again, when the guest checks in to the experience at an event or a banquet or wedding function. In terms of where that guidelines comes from, we refer to the CDC, of course, the World Health Organization, and ALHI, which is the American Hotel and Lodging Association as well. And then we have a restaurant group that manages our food and beverage functions, and they sort of put all of that together and gave us some guidance as well. So lots of information coming from lots of places for sure.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. And Woody, a question has come in. What % of weddings are from couples out of state and versus local? And what shift are you seeing for 2021?
Well, that's a great question. Here at Bald Head at the Shoals Club, we're pretty much a hidden gem on the East Coast, and so about 80% of our weddings are repeat and referral weddings for us, and so they come from within the state of North Carolina or nearby. We do have a regional presence up to Richmond, Virginia, the DC area. We have had some New York clients come via Wedding Salon, which is always a plus, but about 80% of those traditionally come from nearby. One thing that we're seeing is actually some more interest as people are not traveling out of the country or they're looking for venues a little bit closer by. We become a good option for them, and so we're seeing some of those inquiries because, as I mentioned in the intro, you can come here and feel like you're somewhere else just by nature of the fact of how we operate on the island with no cars, and you access it by a ferry. And we still have that quaint little village feel. We max out at about 10,000 people in season on the island, and so you can come here and feel really safe. And so we're seeing some increased interest. We'd like to see some more increased interest and expand our presence, and that seems to be happening. And so we're starting to field some of those inquiries from some areas that we wouldn't normally get inquiries from, and so we attribute that to people that are trying to look a little bit closer to home.
Thank you so much. And Michelle, what are you seeing on the landscape for destination weddings for 2021? Do you recommend couples to have it? Are you booking? Are you rescheduling? Tell us the state of affairs.
Well, most of my couples are eloping or doing a micro wedding now so they can do something big next year. And what I've been reading is about 84% or more have been rescheduling to 2021 or 2022. But what's interesting for me is several of my couples and weddings are doing destination, but moving their destination within the US. For example, I had a group that was getting married in Santa Barbara, but the majority of their guests were from Miami. So we're now looking at Tampa and Savannah, Georgia, and places that they can drive and still feel like they're having a destination wedding without having to put all their guests on an airplane. And then I have those that are really excited because their guest counts are now smaller and they can do that without breaking hearts, and they can take that destination trip to an island or somewhere else that they've imagined doing, but before thought they would break too many hearts if they had to cut the guest count down. So that's giving us a lot of opportunities to explore. And I'm watching the guest counts around the world go up. It was kind of exciting to see in Dubai. They just said you could do up to 200 people. And that just came out for October 23rd, which is exciting. But we're getting in Savannah and Florida, you can do larger guest counts too. We're not having restrictions. In California, it's interesting. We can do an outdoor ceremony for unlimited people, as long as it's a faith-based ceremony. We just can't do the whole party. So we have to be creative with where we're going. But I think this is a really exciting time for exploring destination weddings.
I agree with you. I think that destination weddings, have always been very popular and been amazing, but just because it's COVID now, it doesn't mean that, couples should not be booking destination weddings. But actually, and that leads me to a question for Kim. And that is, what is Aruba doing to, how's Aruba handling US travels, US travelers, and, how are you equipped to handle COVID cases if they come? And what are you recommending people to come and book now for later? Tell us the state of the union for Aruba.
Great question on that, Tatiana. The island, of course, being open, we are being very careful with our visitors as well as the locals themselves. So we do require PCR testing for everybody coming into the destination. So whether you are a local or a visitor, you must have a PCR test either upon arrival or up to 72 hours prior to arrival. And that ensures the safety of everybody while at destination and when you go home, because you know that everybody who was on island, nobody was asymptomatic. Everybody had gone through this testing. Also, everybody must take out mandatory COVID insurance. This way, when you come to the destination, if you're testing on island, if you happen to test and you're asymptomatic and you test positive, you don't then have to worry about paying for accommodations for the 2 weeks or however long you have to be in isolation, because we don't do general isolation. So you're also not put in some kind of like tent or convention center with a bunch of strangers, locals on island who are sick as well. You are in a private guest home, rental home that has Wi-Fi and TV and a kitchen, and you can order in your groceries just like you would at home if you were in quarantine and isolation. So that allows, the comfort knowing that that's already paid for you because you took out that insurance. So not only is healthcare provided for, but also that peace of mind. So we do go to that extent as well. So it's important steps that we take in that regards. And I know there was a second part to that question that I just definitely wanted to answer for you there.
Are you seeing bookings?
Oh, bookings for weddings. More of the bookings for the weddings are coming in for the 21-22 season because of the fact that, for the fall time frame, of course, a lot of the brides, like Michelle was saying, we're postponing, having that difficulty in traveling. And of course, the protocols that we have on island with weddings. The micro weddings are still taking place. Of course, everything is outdoors, so that helps in that regards, but it is with that social distancing in mind, the smaller weddings. And unfortunately, a lot of people, when it comes to receptions, you want to have the dancing and things like that. And there is no dancing allowed with weddings right now in Aruba. So that is one protocol that has taken place for the rest of this year that we are hoping does get eliminated moving forward. You can have dancing inside in a ballroom, but then the numbers are even lower for indoor weddings. So a lot of protocols happening with that.
What about flights? Have you seen an increase in flight capacity to Aruba and destinations in the Caribbean?
Airlines are very slow and very particular in putting their flight routes back in place, because we know how the industry has been affected. So they are strategically placing the flights where they're going to maximize and get the best dollar, make sure that the flights are full. Of course, you do have Southwest, JetBlue, and Delta, who have committed to keep their middle seats empty throughout the end of the year. Delta has extended all the way through next year to keep their middle seats empty. So this is huge in the fact of knowing that even though we may have those planes coming in, you still don't have 100% of the passengers on the planes. So while it's good to know that we have some of the flights coming in, by the end of the year, we're still only going to have 55% of our flights coming down to the destination. You still don't have 100% of the seats coming to the destination. American and United have 100% of their seats being occupied, but the other airlines do not. So it depends on what you're looking for being on a flight. If you want more elbow room, either fly midweek or fly on one of those other carriers that are keeping those middle seats empty.
And to that point, Carolyn, just curious, couples are asking us, what are the most popular destinations now? Like, what are people booking for next year for destination weddings and for honeymoons? Where do they feel safe to go?
I think people are feeling safer in locations that do have protocol, like Aruba, like Jamaica. I am sort of steering people that direction, although it does become a challenge. For example, the island of Jamaica continues to change their protocol, and they do it without notice. So that becomes a bit of a challenge. Aruba has been steadfast from the beginning. Thank you, Kim, and anyone that has anything to do with that. We are booking more Dominican Republic and Mexico because there is no protocol. So you have the people that want to feel 100% safe, and then you have the people that want to feel 100% free to, to not have to test and to not have to complete registration forms and that type of thing. So there is a mix, and it just really depends on how the couple feels and how they think their guests are going to feel.
You had mentioned you work with some all-inclusives. I'm just curious, all-inclusives are all about buffets and all about, the things that, we're kind of shunning away from. How have these organizations handled this, part of the all-inclusive? Have there any changes been made, or what are you seeing?
Yeah, there have been a lot of changes made. Some brands are more known for their buffets than others. Some don't have them at all. But even brands that do have buffets at this point, no guests are touching any of the food, any of the food service whatsoever. It's all being handled by the resort staff. So you hold your plate, they serve you.
I see. Okay, great. And Susan, our couples want to know, what can they do to, either save money or not risk losing their money if they're putting in all their deposits to, some of these destinations, and how would you recommend they handle it?
For people who already have the deposits in, or how to save for future weddings?
Both. Do you recommend them to put down deposits now, and or if they put down their deposits, how do you recommend that they, deal with COVID, and how should they be thinking about spending their money?
For the money that they're actually accumulating, if they can avoid putting, I would put down as little deposit as what would hold the venue, because venues depends on the venue partly. The more established venues that are most likely to be there, I think they can be comfortable. Some venues and providers, the smaller providers, are less likely or not as likely to be there when they're going to be. If they're booking 2 years out, they may or may not survive. I mean, unfortunately, as you said, some of the vendors are a little bit shakier. I would be a little bit more hesitant to put a deposit down for a solo photographer 2 years out. I'm sorry to say. The larger venues, I think I might be more comfortable putting down a small deposit. If whatever the smallest deposit that they can get away with, though, that's what I'd put down. For accumulating money, if the wedding is going to be in a year, less than 2 years, I would not invest it in the markets. Keep it safe. Don't take any risk with it. Obviously, I'm not trying to give investment advice here, but any money that's short term, keep it safe and sound in a bank. Don't take any risk on the investment front. I would say, though, towards the fact that everything keeps changing with COVID, anything that you're talking about, if you have weddings that you've had to change from 2020 to 2021, a lot of people had a change where they had a prime spot on a Saturday. Now they're not getting as good a spot because 2021 Saturdays are all filled up and they have to take maybe not as prime a spot. Try to renegotiate, get something extra, get a longer cocktail hour, get something different. You paid for a prime spot if that credit's being carried over, and everything, get it in writing, because the person that you're speaking to today, hi, Tatiana, we worked out a different arrangement. Now, you might be working for a different company because the company you're working for changed or whatever. Make sure that everybody you're speaking to, you get it in writing. I spoke to Tatiana on this day and now she's working for X and I'm talking to you. Get it in writing, who you spoke with, confirm it in an email. Say, okay, I spoke to Mary Jo on this date. She said that I was going to get an extra half hour of the cocktail hour or an extra carving station. And, just confirming that this is what we agreed to. Could you please send me an update to my contract? Get everything in writing, get it signed off, make sure that you do everything properly and get it recorded. Don't do anything verbal during this time, and make sure that they reply and agree to it. If they don't send you a new contract signed, at least get a reply to the email and follow up. Don't just send it and say, hey, I sent it, and since you didn't reply, I assumed we were good. Call up, say, hey, I sent you an email. Did you get it? Put everything in writing, communicate and document. It's going to save you, because you're talking about a year from now. Who knows where everybody will be a year from now? Just cover your bases and make sure that you get everything documented. And as far as the deposits go, put down as little as possible if that's what they're willing to put up with, just in case.
Can I
Thank you
add
so
to that,
much.
Tatiana?
Yes, please. I would love for everyone that has input, please share.
Because I think that's great information, Susan. But also in Aruba, we have the happily ever after guarantee. And because of COVID, we came out with this because of this pandemic. It's never had to be something. I mean, some destinations have hurricane guarantees, but we're outside the hurricane belt. We didn't have to have that. So we came out with this COVID guarantee, a pandemic guarantee, that should you need to, if you put down your deposit, should you book your wedding with our participating resorts, if you have to cancel or postpone because of this pandemic reason, you can postpone without any penalties at all. So there's no hassle behind that. You just have to postpone it, no penalties whatsoever, no addition on fees with that either. So that is our happily ever after guarantee.
If I may add, for us is absolutely the same, because already organizing a wedding is stressful. I mean, it's a pleasure organizing a wedding for bride and groom, but it is stress. So a lot to think about. So we as a venue want to be the ones not to be a heartbreaker or a brain or headache maker. We have been extremely flexible, and we will be, and because it's such an emotional event already, as easygoing as we can be, and switch and swap dates as many times as the bride and groom need to and feel like to, we'll go for that. Because that's the most important, is one of the most important days in their lives, and it should be just a good memory organizing it and living the day. So I am with Susan, I'm with Kim and all brides and grooms. Make it easy and make it happy.
Thank you so much. Does anybody else care to chime in on their policy and their hotel policy? Or
Yeah, I mean, here at the Shoals Club, we've moved. We actually had about 20 weddings on the books in our shoulder seasons this year. We executed 2, one of which was greatly reduced. and those folks got a refund for money they had given us that they weren't able to use because they reduced. Every other event got moved to 2021 without any penalty. And so, flexibility. I think one of the things Susan said that's really important is, you know what vendors you're dealing with, ones who have been in business for a long time, ones who are more established. And so, I think you can have some more confidence with those. But I want to be the person, if there's a change, that somebody goes out and says, man, the Shoals Club was so easy to work with. They did right by me, as opposed to being the one who says, man, they stuck so solidly to that contract. Nobody wants that kind of publicity. And so we've been extremely flexible as well. We went through Hurricane Florence a couple of years ago. We refunded over $150,000 for weddings that couldn't take place, including refunding even the non-refundable kind of deposit portion. And so we didn't keep a single penny from any of those brides. We did, for those who had to move, we actually did refunds early, so that they could have those funds available to rebook other venues and so forth. And so, flexibility is really the name of the game, and making sure we want those folks to, to come back and to share with their friends what a great experience they had out of something that could be really negative.
I have something else to add, if possible. So we're really excited that we haven't had one client lose a penny through this process. And I do agree so much with everything that's being said here, but one addition to it, I think, is insurance. It's really important for a client to buy insurance right now, because you do sadly have to put deposits down. And I usually start with my clients with photographers, individual artists that we can't book otherwise, but you can get insurance to protect you in case those vendors go out of business. And many of because I'm a planner that has been doing this for 20 years, my vendors are great with me. We're all family, the ones that I work with regularly, and they're not pushing me for deposits and payments. But at the same time, I make sure and take care of them. I want to make sure that they're still in business next year. So some of the venues that I've had are needing payments now. That's how they're going to be in business next year. But by buying insurance, you're protecting yourself in the long term. So we've all got to kind of be in this together to support each other to go the long haul and survive.
Michelle, how much is insurance, and is COVID covered, and what's it covered under? Would it be covered under force majeure?
Well, I called every single insurance company when this started, and I'm sure others have too, in the financial and travel. So COVID started to not be covered. And now with force majeure, we know it's happening. So we can't say that it's something that's not likely, but they do cover vendors. Absolutely. If they're going out of business, that's one thing I see not a problem with. Also, people are covered if there's often, and there's different insurance, so you have to check, but for a death in the family or another crisis that you might have, so that you may have some ability to work within those realms to find out how to cover yourself.
A question actually just came in from a bride, and she asked how to get insurance. What do you call?
Well, I know you have some companies that I've met at the wedding salon that are great.
Yeah.
I work with many. So USAA, right? If your family was in the military, WedSafe is great. You can go online, and it's between about $150 to $250. It's aggregated. You ask questions, and as you answer them, it'll tell you the price. Rather, you're providing all the liquor, people are paying for the liquor, the price will be different as you go through. So there's so many wonderful companies out there. And shop around, but there's about 4 or 5, of the big ones.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Tatiana, can I expand?
Yes,
on that
please.
From the travel end, that'd be great. Thank you. So we went from, we offer insurance always and always have. That's been our policy for 35 years. We went from having probably 30% of our clients purchase insurance, and we're now at 100% of our clients purchasing insurance. So we have obviously all of the horror stories to back that up of people that have, say, booked with online agencies like Expedia and that type of thing, where the airlines are giving money back, but they're not refunding them and that type of thing. So we have several insurance companies that we use, but the insurance is usually based on the total trip cost and the age of your travelers. when you're purchasing insurance for your destination wedding, your flights, your hotels, and that type of thing. There is a policy that's available in most states now that's a cancel for any reason policy, which is the only true insurance policy that has been covering during this period where people either are afraid to travel or, you know, when the world was shut down. So the cancel for any reason insurance, I think, is key these days. It does not necessarily offer a full refund, but it does offer between 75% and an 80% refund if you just say, you know what, I'm not doing it. I'm not getting on an airplane. I'm afraid, I'm done. And you literally, you call the insurance company and just file a claim for any reason. You don't say COVID, because if you say COVID, they will not even refund you at all. But if you say, you know, I'm having a bad hair day, I'm not getting on the plane, and you will get your 75 to 80% refund if you have the insurance that does offer the cancel for any reason option.
And how much is that insurance?
It depends on the trip cost and the age of the traveler. So it can be anywhere between, you know, say $99 to $399, depending again on the cost of the trip and the age of the traveler. And so if I just may expand upon that particular cancel for any reason policy also has medical insurance with it. It has trip interruption insurance with it. Most of them are also covering quarantine. I know to go to Aruba, you have to have their insurance, but other locations aren't requiring that. And some of these policies are covering if you do get sick and you do have to be quarantined, it does cover most of the cost of your additional stay as well.
And while I have you, are people traveling now? Are people getting on planes now? What are you seeing?
Yes, they are traveling. And I was so excited to read that on October 19th, 1 million people passed through TSA checkpoints. And that is huge. That's the most since, I believe it was the 15th of March. And that made us in the travel industry really do a happy dance because it means people are starting to become confident again. And they're looking to have that experience and reconnection, whether it's, you know, it's with family, whether it's at a destination, regardless, people are starting to move again.
And this is a question for Beth, actually. So, you know, I know on the planning side, you know, we have a sister company called 4 p.m. Events, and we also plan weddings and events. And I always go to on a site visit. I do a tasting, I meet with all the vendors. And so now that, you know, couples might be trying to hedge and not make an extra trip for the site visit, how are you handling the quote unquote site visit / not being able to have a proper tasting and taste the food?
So with the site visit, we, just like this Zoom call, we have the ability to do a Zoom meeting. We have done FaceTime appointments where I've walked guests through the property. We also have an application called that we use through True Tour, which is literally a virtual experience. They can walk through our banquet space, they can walk through our guest rooms and really get a feel for what the property is like. I have done some of those where I've been on the phone with the client where they're walking through and then we're talking through that experience at the same time. So that has really worked well. We have several weddings that have booked basically physically sight unseen, but they're able to see all of that through all of our different social media pages and all of the different digital applications that we have now. So that has been a huge, huge piece of it. For menu tastings, that's a little more difficult to do virtually, but we have worked with our culinary team. They are typically not client facing, but they have really honed their skills quite a bit. We've done lots of Zoom meetings and conference calls with chef on the phone, answering questions, customizing menus, things like that, so they can really get that as much of that experience as they possibly can. And then we did also develop a program so we have the ability to ship a cake tasting to a client.
Ooh.
So that's always fun. Who wants to, you always want to get cake in the mail, right? And so that has been a great experience as well. It gives them a little bit of an idea of what they can expect on the wedding day from both their wedding cake side, of course, as well as the culinary experience here.
Thank you. Does anybody else care to share on that question before we move on to a different question? Okay. So the next question we have is actually for you, Michelle, and that is, what recommendations do you have for a safe, socially distant destination wedding? How does one execute that? You're muted.
Thank you. Thank you. My gardener was working outside, so I didn't want you to hear anything there. Wow, just, it's the same protocols that we're using everywhere. In every city, we've got to check with them because they're changing constantly. So normally when everyone's outside, we're doing the chairs for the ceremony in groups. So often 2 people together, 3 people together, or sometimes we even assign those seats to have their names where their group's going to be seated for the wedding ceremony itself. Masks available, which could be a fun favor as well for people, sanitation stations. And then the big thing is when you've got, it's always hard to RSVP and assign guests to tables, but now we've got to really limit it. So often it's only 5 people at a table or a family that's together. So sometimes we're doing small tables. We did one little wedding for 6 people and we had 5 guests plus the couple, and we had 6 tables at our little hotel, little one tops, and each sat separately. So that's the big thing, is just figuring out who your groups are and dividing them so everyone's comfortable with their masks off when it's time to eat.
And what role does technology play now? Is it much more prevalent as far as streaming and hybrid weddings? How do you feel about that?
We've had a Zoom efficient. You can actually, this was funny because a lot of my couples, I put them on a Zoom together one time. And that was interesting because one of them said, I'm getting married on 9/19, no matter what. And she got the ball rolling with many of them to decide to do. So we've had one couple went and eloped in Los Robles. They wanted to get out of Los Angeles and they wanted to tie the knot. We're still doing their wedding next year, but we had a Zoom efficient. And I think the other main thing is the marriage license. That's where people are not realizing that we're having a lot of hiccups. Here in California, the offices were completely closed for marriage license for a while. I have someone who does what's called a confidential license. So you could pay him a couple $100 extra. He'd come with the license because he buys them in bulk and he's a notary on them. But otherwise, people are having trouble just getting their license meeting with the official in their area. So get that on the books because you can do that virtually often as well.
Thank you. A question actually just came in for Susan, and that is, what's your suggestion of how much parents should spend on a wedding? And I'm going to add something to that. Do you think couples should get into debt for their weddings?
Generally speaking, I would say the debt should be limited.
I knew you would say that.
It would be hard to say 0 debt, but it would have to be a reasonable amount, something they could pay off, let's say within a year or with the gifts they expect. I wouldn't say, to say 0 debt would be probably unrealistic, but it shouldn't be debt that they'd have to pay off for years and years. As far as the parents go, what I'm finding is you have to have an honest conversation with your parents. It shouldn't be that if the parents are going to have to take out debt of their own, if your parents are close to retirement and they're going to be taking money out of a retirement account and having to pay taxes on that money, taking $50,000 out of a retirement account is going to cost your parents $70,000 or $80,000 because they're going to have to pay taxes on it. So especially if the children can afford it and the parents are doing it because they feel they have to, you really have to have an honest conversation. I had that exact situation with a couple recently when the children make a ton of money. And when they really found out that the kids really didn't need it, instead the parents spent $10,000 and did the rehearsal dinner. And that was something the parents could pay out of pocket. And it was a much more personal affair. And it meant a lot to the kids. And it was something very special, as opposed to the parents really digging into savings they didn't have. And that was a lot more meaningful. And I would tell you, really, is it a need or a want or an expectation? The parents shouldn't feel guilty about spending, about doing it because they have to. And if the kids can't afford it and the parents can't afford it, then you have to do something you can afford. You shouldn't be stressing about finances for a wedding you can't afford. It's not the right way to get your life off on a start. What I tell people is if you can't afford to have the wedding of your dreams, then plan on having an anniversary party of your dreams. Get off to a beautiful, simple wedding. You can have so much fun on a simple start and then have a wonderful anniversary party. Believe me, all the wedding vendors that come to the wedding salon will be more than happy to help you put together an amazing anniversary party that you can afford and enjoy when you can afford to enjoy it. Okay, believe me. Am I wrong, Tatiana? Will all of your wedding salon people also help you put on an amazing anniversary party?
Oh, absolutely.
My husband and I had a 10th anniversary Halloween party that was even more fun than our Halloween party that we helped self-cater because we were broke. We had an amazing 10th anniversary party because I was making a heck of a lot more money for that. So much fun. Believe me, you can have many parties to celebrate your happily ever after. Trust me.
Thank you, Susan. And a question actually just came in for Woody, and that is, what's the average size of a destination wedding that you do? And what is your resort doing to maintain socially distant weddings for now?
So here on the island, we averaged before anywhere from like 100 to 125. So we were already on the smaller side. Now we're a little bit more limited because in North Carolina, we've got some of the same numbers that I've heard others say. We can have, I can have an unlimited number of people for a ceremony, but I can only have 50 people together for an outdoor reception. I can only have 25 inside. Now the beauty here is that we have spaces there that open up to an outside venue. And so I actually was able to do a wedding for 75 people a few weeks ago. We just needed to keep 25 of them inside and the other 50 were outside, but great French doors that opened up. And so it felt like one space, but we were still within the proper protocols. And so we have a lot of the same protocols that we've already heard to keep people safe. Our staff are in masks, we use gloves. We're not doing buffets. We're having attendance if we do stations. We're coming up with really fun family style meals where we can seat family groups together. Much like Michelle said, we used to be kind of rounds of 8 or rounds of 10, and now we have 4 tops and 3 tops and 2 tops. And wow, here's a family of 8. They can all sit together. And so we've just been creative in those things, like most venues are. Our ferries, when you come over, require a mask. Typically, the ferry capacity is 150 passengers. It's limited to 100 passengers right now, so they can space more. It's mask mandatory. It's a 30-minute ride. When that ferry docks, the crew go in. Every surface is wiped down and sanitized before they bring the next group of people on. And that's all very visible. And so that creates a comfort level. We have lots of signage around to remind people. And so, many of the same things that everyone else is doing. And so, it works well. We have lots of outdoor space as well. And so we're able, we did do a shift wedding for 150 people that just couldn't be moved. And so we actually ran 6 mini events of 25 people in the night and just did 2-hour shifts. So we had 3 different venues of 25. And then those folks left. We had some time to reset and to sanitize in between. And then we brought in the next 3 groups of 25. And then we just had the bride and groom traveled from space to space to greet their guests. I wasn't sure how it was going to work. It's the weirdest event I've ever done. At the end, it ended up being a lot of fun for the staff. It was different for the staff. It wasn't kind of the same old. And so it worked well. And most importantly, we had an extremely happy client who was able to have their day, and they were able to take care of the guests, many of whom had already made arrangements and were planning to come. And so it worked out well. But flexibility is the name of the game for us. We're traditionally in the 125 range. We're a little bit limited right now if you wanted to have all of your guests together at one time. But the beauty here on the island, as I said, we have 2 clubs and lots of indoor-outdoor space to utilize.
Thank you. And so I'm going to ask this question of each of you, but this has come in from several of our brides. And what they want to know is, what's a new wedding trend that you're seeing now? that will either spark in 2021 or has been a trend and will continue to spark. And so I'm going to start with Kim.
We have, of course, more of the streaming and drones. Depending on location and our wind, drones can or cannot be utilized, but definitely more of the streaming is taking place. Wi-Fi is great around the island, so that is definitely a great way to incorporate the loved ones who are unable to come along to the weddings. So I definitely see that happening even more so moving forward.
Thank you. Marike, how about yourself?
I would even say there's a trend for yes, smaller events like in the upcoming month, and to take the occasion to have a bigger party later on. So it's a double to take 2 times the pleasure to celebrate. To do one smaller, I did a legal wedding in July. It was very small, just bride and groom and the parents of the bride, and I know that they are setting up now for mid next year to have their bigger party with more family included. So it seems like people are getting now 2 parties instead of 1.
Or several, which is what he had suggested. Carolyn, how about yourself? What are you seeing? You're muted.
But I'm not hearing. Okay, great, thank you. So what I'm seeing currently is our larger weddings have actually, they're shrinking in size basically, and I think Michelle had mentioned this as well. So and we're seeing more of the micro wedding, or not even a micro, but maybe 20 guests are traveling together. And the emphasis is truly on the experience and the meaningfulness of the event and of enjoying time together, spending time in great weather with, you know, beautiful backdrops and that type of thing. So what we were seeing in the last couple of years is larger groups, and now with our requests that have come in the last couple of months, it really is just a small, more intimate experience that people are looking for.
Thank you. And Michelle, how about yourself?
You know what's the best is the excitement when the guests are so excited to get out and be with people once again. You don't get people RSVPing, no, they are excited to be there. And then maybe just on a different note, with design trends, we've been doing lots of monochromatic because it makes your money just look bigger when you go with a color hue and you just really capitalize on it. So whether it's red or white or purple, it just looks really rich and lush when you keep a palette kind of hued into one color. So that's a big trend we've been doing a lot.
And Woody?
Much the same thing. We're seeing smaller, smaller weddings, obviously, and what we're seeing is less stress. People feel less obligated right now to invite everyone where they, had a hard time paring down their guest list before. It's a little bit easier for them, but we're finding that people are working with a similar budget, and so they're able to do nicer things. So they're doing upgrades that they really wanted to do that maybe they were holding back on before. So they're doing some upgrades to food and beverage. They're doing some upgrades to their setups. They're adding additional vendors, which also helps those vendors. And so in a lot of ways, what we're seeing is that smaller weddings actually are supporting more people in the industry because they're able to apply some of that budget and add something that they wouldn't have had before because they needed to buy food and beverage for an extra, 40 or 50 people. And so that's good, especially here in Southeastern North Carolina. We have a pretty vibrant wedding community. And a lot of those vendors are smaller vendors, and a lot of their business depended on doing these weddings. And so whenever we can add them in and kind of have them show up for every event instead of a few of the kind of really higher end events, that helps the industry here locally, especially as well. So that's one of the things that we're seeing that I think is a positive. The bride and groom are less stressed. It's a little bit more intimate affair, and in a lot of ways it becomes more memorable for them.
And Susan, what are you seeing?
Very similar, much more intimate, I think was the word I was thinking when you asked the question. been seeing a lot of backyard weddings with plans to either go on the destination trip a year from now or to celebrate, either to have a wedding or an anniversary party when it's appropriate next year. And but I will say people are really valuing the experience more and appreciating everything more, which I think is a silver lining to everything, that they're appreciating their family and their friends. What Michelle said, all of a sudden they're appreciating who they can see now. And it's a sad silver lining, but it is a silver lining.
And Beth, what are you seeing as some trends that are sparking up for 2021?
So trends for 21, and sorry, I disappeared for a minute. There was no power in the office I was in, so my computer died, but I'm back. So trends that I'm seeing, and I'm sorry if somebody mentioned this, is really just an awareness that all of your guests might not be at the same comfort level when it comes to social distancing or just being around other people. So definitely seeing a lot of brides and grooms elect to do sort of a bracelet style, a temporary bracelet where they can indicate whether they are totally social distancing, they don't want any contact whatsoever, or maybe they're kind of that middle of the road where they're high fives, and then there's some people that are just totally hugs and everything else is great. So I think that's one of the biggest things, is just being aware that your guests may not all be at that same level.
And I think that certainly what we're seeing is that brides are still spending. They're spending the same, if not more. It's not that they're spending less. It's just that they're spending it on less people, so that the experience is so much more incredible for the people that are coming, and at the end of the day, destination weddings have always been a little bit more intimate in nature, where you didn't have to invite every single person that you were afraid that you were going to offend, because, frankly, destination weddings require a lot more logistics for a guest to come, right? And so, but brides are spending, couples are spending the same and more. What we're seeing is cancellations are not happening. Very few. I think that there was a recent study done by the Knot where less than 5% of all of total weddings were actually canceled. The majority of them were postponed. And if people are doing Zoom weddings or hybrid weddings, the recommendation is for them to wait until next year. Fall of 2021 is the time we're hearing that it seems to be the most popular, and a little bit of summer, but fall 2021. And, where they can then have, let's say, a Zoom wedding now, and then the celebration that they wanted next year. Michelle, you're nodding. Are you seeing a similar thing?
Absolutely. That's we're booking up. Of course, Labor Day is already taken, and the fall. They feel comfortable with that. We've had so many. It's funny. What's another trend I was thinking afterwards is the save the date again cards, because we've had to send them several times as we keep moving to the date that we feel comfortable with.
Absolutely. And actually, someone asked us if email is okay for communication. And the answer is, of course. I think all bets are off, right? And as a planner, and I'm sure Michelle can attest to this, it's, you might be changing several times, and it's okay to change, and it's okay to communicate. And as a matter of fact, communication is more important now than ever, and communicating specifically first and foremost with the venue to, obviously if you're changing, that's the first call you're making, is to agree on a date. Don't communicate with all your vendors first. The venue is number one, because, without a date, it's, you're going to go around and around in circles, right? So you got to get the date. And I would recommend to get a second date, to get 2 dates, hold them both with the venue, and then start the communication dialogue with all the vendors to see, make sure everybody's available. And so, and that's basically the process, but email is totally okay. And also having that wedding website where you can communicate, what's going on with your wedding and your travel itinerary and so on. So, but I wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of our incredible panelists. You have been amazing. And, we really appreciate all of your insight today and your feedback. You're in the trenches, dealing with our destination weddings and honeymoons and, really being, at the top in the industry. And we value your contribution and really appreciate your support. And thank you all of our couples that tuned in today and, asking all of your questions. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to go through all of them, but we promise we have more webinars that are coming up, and we will try and address as many questions as we can. And I want to say thank you everyone for joining us, and safe and exciting planning to you. Bye-bye.